Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Season 4, Episode 47. Hello and welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast with me, Mark Taylor. Today I'm joined by Carol Aveyard, who is someone that I've known for about 6-7 years or so now, because I've been teaching her son drums over that amount of time when he was in primary school, all the way through to now when he's just finishing secondary school.
College.
I know, amazing to think. And Carol also teaches year 5 and 6 music at Hartwell Primary School, and you would have heard, having spoken to Jane Clancy from the school, exactly what a fantastic music department it has. So I thought we can sort of combine all these things and give you a real sort of sense of what it's like to have music in your school and how you go about doing that, whether you're a specialist music teacher or whether you're just a class teacher, slightly worried about how you start your day with music. And so we're going to cover all those sorts of things today and kind of give you some real great advice about how you do that. So welcome, Carol.
Hi.
So let's start off. Just give us a little bit of background about your teaching experience, and I know you've been around the world a little bit, so and give people an idea of all that sort of thing.
Yes, so my teaching experience, I started off as a woodwind peripatetic with Gwent Music Support Service over in Wales, and through that, after being a woodwind peri, I got involved with early years music. So that was really the first time I had large groups that weren't specifically sitting down and playing a musical instrument. I'd done bands, I'd done orchestras, recorder groups, but that was the first time it was just me, a bunch of children, and some songs, and some tappy instruments. What do we do now? So we trained, we learned, we put this program together, and that's got to be 20 years ago now, when the whole early years movement really started off. And then we had the really bright idea as a family to move to California. It was a very good idea. And so I went to approach the local music service to become a woodwind teacher, and they didn't have them. So I'm sat there thinking, well, okay, what do I do? So I had a preschooler myself. I went into his nursery. I volunteered just to do some music because nobody else was doing it. So we started off that way. Then, of course, he got bigger. My daughter was also bigger, so I got into school. Would you like to do reading, Carol? Well, I could do music with you if you'd prefer. Okay. Took on a whole load more training, figured it all out, was there altogether for 6 years doing that. Came back to England after 6 years and realised actually there was more to me now than being a woodwind teacher.
Yeah, for sure.
And actually, I wasn't really too bad at doing this classroom work. Again, took on a load more training and got a load more experience. The world had also moved on significantly. When I started off, I was on tapes. And anything you wanted, I would sit at my piano recording backing tapes to it.
Yes.
Then we had this thing called the internet with this huge amount of resources on it. We had wonderful companies set up that I use a lot. I discovered new people. I discovered Sara Watts. I discovered Out of the Ark, all these wonderful resources. And actually, my life's become a lot easier. That I don't have to recreate everything or create rather than recreate things. And discovered, actually, I really quite enjoy this classroom work. So now I do a bit of everything. I've got my ensembles. I've got my private teaching practice for instruments. I am a woodwind peri, but I also do a lot of classroom work as well.
So you can see there's a sort of real sort of diversity there, which keeps life really interesting.
It does, because they actually do cross over as well, and I think it makes me a better woodwind teacher and piano teacher, actually, to know where the children are coming from in school, rather than just this little pop-it and have to do the practice this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in terms of Hartwell School, which, having spoken to Jane, it's got a thriving music department. I mean, what do you think is the key to that? I mean, I know you've not been there for the whole time that Jane was there, but what do you think was the key to their success in having music at the heart of the school?
Well, Jane, to start off with, Jane has the vision. She knows that if you teach music in school, your results will go up. You've got engaged children, you've got engaged parents. It is it's a lovely village school, so it's not short of a penny, but it is a state school, so it's PTA funded as far as that kind of thing is concerned. But she knows if she needs the resources, she's got to pay for it, and she will do that. She's perfectly happy to do that. And music is just throughout the school as what you do.
Yeah,
there's no dividing lines anywhere. You do music in Hartwell School,
and from my interview with her, I think that came across that, you know, if that's your starting point, then the rest of it does flow. It's just a question of putting in the organisation.
She has very high standards as well. So, you know, when I first met Jane, she told me exactly what was going to be required. And with all my experience, I still had that moment of, oh, can I do this?
Yeah,
you know, and I had to have a little word with myself and say, this is what you want to do, Carol. This is the school.
Yeah. And so just explain what your role is in that school. So you do year 5 and 6 in the ensemble, sort of the people that are really... Yeah,
I do curriculum music for years 5 and year 6, which is a PPA cover. So while the teachers are off doing their planning, I take their class to do that. I also have 2 recorder groups. Now I have a younger one, complete beginners, and then I have a slightly older one because we're reading music as well, and you can't really combine the 2. Yeah. So those are lunchtime clubs. And then after school, I have the amazing Hartwell School Orchestra, which have been all around town last year performing. And it is wonderful. We've got from beginners, but we also have all the way up to grade 4 within a primary school because Jane puts the resources into it. And you know, and has the backing. Yeah,
and that support, because they've got a choir, haven't they, as well, that do that. So as we said on that previous podcast, you know, you have that music going on through reception all the way through, and then once they get to that slightly more advanced stage in terms of age as well as musicality, you know, you've then got that ability. If you've got the ensembles, you've got the recorders, you've already started to read, you're having your instrumental lessons, and then you've got your ensemble to be able to perform. It's kind of the perfect scenario.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And their results are a testament to that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's brilliant when you've got a head like that, and it's all up and running, and it's, you know, it makes our life very exciting, and you know, you can really thrive and do that sort of thing. But you also teach in some other schools as well, which have had less of that background.
Yeah, absolutely, and some quite socially deprived schools as well. And they pay me to go in to do music throughout the entire school, their assemblies, singing assemblies, and what have you. And they generally don't have the same orchestra, the same ensembles. We generally have choir. We have recorders, but they're not to the same standard as Hartwell, but they don't have to be. I just write the music so that it works. You know, what do I have? This is the way we'll go about it. I've done lots of things like guitar groups, ukulele groups, and what have you in other schools. It just works in a different way. But all of the classes get decent curriculum. Music, which
is really key, and one of your previous schools, I went in and did some samba. That's always a lot of fun, especially when you go in and you work with children that you know have already got a good grounding in some of their musical skills, because you can start at such a faster pace, and they really pick things up quickly, and that's kind of, it sort of takes us round to why we decided to do the cluster event, you know, and you'd have also heard in the previous podcast me talking to Andy Williams about, you know, the EWS school, which is the secondary school around here, and actually the cluster primary schools wanting to have this idea of a feeder system, you know, actually having more music, having all that investment they put into their primary school, knowing that when they go to secondary they have somewhere to play and perform, and he's very keen on all that sort of thing. So it was kind of our brainchild, wasn't it, to be able to sort of come up with an idea of getting the children to come and play and understand together. What that's like.
Yes.
So what do you think is the key thing to that, and why having a cluster idea of more than just the individual schools working together?
Well, I think it puts music across our cluster area, so they can see what other schools are doing. They can think, you know what, I could do a little bit of that. Let us have that. I think people are quite scared of music. And maybe it's in some ways that they're not necessarily so scared of other areas. They're very scared of music. They think you've got to be a member of the Philharmonic or you can't teach how to sing a song. And they're quite scared of it. And I've noticed certainly since I got back from America, certainly within about the last 8 years, how music has gone downhill in schools quite significantly, and it doesn't need to have done. By bringing the children into the cluster, they can say, here's a person who can do this. Oh, look, there's quite a few of them who can actually do this. Maybe we could ask some questions. The children are getting the music, and staff are thinking, oh, I could do that. I joined in. That was actually quite easy to teach. Yeah,
and I think that's important, and that's the reason, as well as having the children performing for an afternoon, we're going to have the sort of the CPD idea of being able to, you know, very hands-on kind of, look, this is what we do in our classrooms when we're doing it, you know, and these are the things that you're going to do. And one of the things that we're really keen to express during this is the fact that we also want to be able to be that person that can help you. You know, we can come in and just say, where is your music at the moment? would you like some help? So there we are. There's the thing about live recordings. So when you're not in the studio, and you hear the doorbell going in the background. But yeah, one of the really key things is to be able to turn around and say, actually, you just need to look at it this way, or you need to look at it that way, or these are some of the games that we do, the rhythm games that we do to get people in. You know, you don't need to suddenly think, I want more music in my school, I need to hire a professional. It's that kind of, we need to do the register every day. Why don't we do it to a rhythm? Why don't we do it in a musical way?
The skill is already in the school. When I started to do this job, I was a musician and I had to learn how to teach.
Yes.
And that was the training I did. And I realised actually the teachers, they already know how to teach. All you have to do now is teach how to sing a little song.
Yeah.
And that's actually very, very easy with the amazing resources that are out there.
Yeah. And that is the other important thing we want to get across for you, is the fact that we're also going to put together some resources that you can't just buy. We are going to have links, and we're going to have recommendations of some companies that provide fantastic things. But we know that the starting point is, I'm going to teach some music today, or I want to introduce music into my school. Where do I start? And so we're going to, first of all, just have a sheet that says, well, you walk into the classroom. How are we going to sit down? We need to move some tables. Let's all sit in a circle. Let's have a rhythm game. These are some of the options that you can do, and then all of a sudden you're already a music teacher. And we understand that the fear factor is so high because lots of people, it's taking you out of your comfort zone. But when you know that over the course of the next half an hour, you're going to come into the room, you're going to sit down, you're going to be in a circle, you're going to create this rhythm which you already know, you're going to introduce the idea of your name, your colour, your favourite football team, or whatever it is that you want to do as a game. The half an hour disappears, but you're already embedding those kind of musical skills which can then be enhanced as you go through. And those are some of those little steps that are really important that you can keep recreating week in, week out, that I think are quite hard resources to find when you're just starting out. And that's the gap, that's the pain point we want to try and help to cover, really.
You can buy a CD, you can buy a music book, but then you think, oh no, what do I do with it?
Exactly.
And it still seems that bit scary.
So you'll be able to go onto the website and sign up for the email, and we'll send you that for free. We'll have this document here which just gives you a step-by-step guide of what to do. So you don't need any money, you don't need any extra time. You can do it during your registration, or when they're lining up for to go into lunch. I've heard people doing it in that way as well. It doesn't matter. You can find and do it in your own way, but we'll just give you some tips of how to do that. And then from there, you'll be able to follow this sort of course idea on, because then what you can do is we'll give you an idea about how do you then introduce some more formal singing. Where are those resources going to be? I'm going to do a recorders, and we've got some peripatetic teachers coming in, so we can introduce anyone. Your ensemble at school, if you want an ensemble, can be anybody doing anything. What have you got in your classroom? What have you got in your school that you can use? And so we want to help you with all of that. And then, as you say, take it through. Once you've then been doing it for a little while and you've got some really skilled people, you can have a real ensemble that can do some great stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the most important things for a teacher who's literally got sort of staring into the headlights going, I don't know where to start? Is it just literally those steps that we've just talked about, or is there anything else that can really help?
A big space in your room in a circle. Yes.
And it is that straightforward.
It really is as straightforward as that. She says the rhythm games that we can show you really easy. They cost absolutely nothing. Yeah. You've realised that you've actually probably already been doing them anyway. And then you just advance it from there. A simple song. Children actually know quite a lot of songs. They listen to the radio in the car every day.
Absolutely.
Sing one.
Yeah.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to overthink things. People do overthink music a lot. And actually, it's quite a basic. Curriculum music is quite basic when you strip it back. So you need a big space in your room and a circle.
and there you are. And that is that straightforward. And I have to say, children they know so many nursery rhymes. They've been through. They do all those things, and also you don't need to be the person that does it on your own. If you're scared of singing, if you're not used to using your voice, one thing you can do is actually do the whole shower thing, and I'm going to sing in the shower, so you get used to actually using it. Yeah. But also, by the same token, you also are able to, there are so many resources out there, and sing with the children. You don't have to be the one that's always leading and doing it on your own.
No, absolutely. If I quite often take a back seat, especially if I'm in school for an entire day. I don't stand and sing for an entire day. My voice wouldn't deal with that, and it certainly wouldn't cope with me doing it again the next day. So I allow the backing track to do it. I let the professional on there take it away, and I work with the children instead of being, Mrs. Aveyard, the teacher. And we work really nicely like that. Let the children take over.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things I've always found is the emphasis that the children feel like they're musicians from the moment they start doing it.
Yes.
So today we've learnt this particular phrase or this particular song, and you're a choir.
Yes.
And it's that simple.
Yes.
You don't have to be in the school choir. You are a choir of this class, and it might be something you want to attain to. You might want a choir that can go to Young Voices or somewhere and really enjoy that sort of thing. But every day has its own entity and something which completes those things, and that's why the rhythm games and those sorts of things and the repetition of all of that really makes all the difference.
It's a big deal. And of course, when I'm in a classroom, I don't have a piano with me.
No.
So I'm known in the community as the piano teacher, the piano lady who, we can play all of these instruments. When I walk in a classroom, I have nothing. I have exactly the same as classrooms all over the country. Yeah. And that's not a piano. So you don't need the expensive and the fancy resources.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is you can literally start now if you want to. And also, one of the things I was going to say, that's bridging that gap between using sort of classroom percussion and actually having more of that. I mean, it's not that expensive to get hold of a set of boom whackers. It's love that,
We all love that.
You've even I did some with reception and year one. We'd learnt a simple nursery rhyme, and then I just gave out the boom whackers and said, well, I'm going to point to you and you're going to play the boom whackers. And we did it in little groups. And one, they loved it because they were just hitting boom whackers on the floor, which is a fantastic thing to do. And then someone said, that's the same song that we've just been singing. Yes, it is. And then before you know it, you've got instruments going on. We talk about interval. Is it higher? Is it lower? Is it louder? Is it softer? And have you heard it on any other instruments? I've heard someone play it before on a flute or anything. And already, this whole engagement is there, and they just absolutely love it.
That was quality learning right there.
Quality learning, really. And a lot of fun, and that's the key. The fun is really the key. So what do you think are the biggest challenges beyond that? Once you've kind of got things going, I mean, bridging the gap into something a little bit more formal, what would you suggest, and what sort of resources do you use to help you move on from there?
Again, classroom teachers, they'll then say, I can sing a song. Yeah, I've got this. Of course I can do rhythm. I can do that. But I can't read music.
Yes, that's the big barrier, isn't it?
Well, there's ways to learn to read music. Music is not meant to be a trick. Reading music is actually really, really simple. It's cracking a code. Who says you have to read music fluently? You can have some very simple guidelines as how this thing is going to work.
Yep.
I've got all sorts of composition things I use. And as we've discussed before, when I was in Hartwell, actually it surprised me how many of the excellent musicians there had never written a music note. And it surprised me. It took me by surprise with all my years of experience of doing that. And so we spent a lesson just writing music notes. And then we put them into some sort of order, higher ones, lower ones. We can put markings on whether they should be hard detached notes, whether they should be smooth notes. You can transfer that to your boom whackers, transfer that to your recorders. You don't have to be able to read music accurately in order to, unless you put a fancy clef at the front of it, it's just a ladder.
Yes.
Teach the children a ladder. Low music goes at the bottom of the ladder. High music notes are at the top of the ladder. Everything else is a step in between. Or is it a jump in between? There's your pitch right there. And then you can develop into, your standard notation.
That's brilliant.
From
And it really is filling in those gaps and those natural small increments.
Tiny increments.
Yeah. And as we said, we're going to have these resources for you to download.
Yes,
we're going to have a ladder.
absolutely.
It's all going to be there for you to be able to do if you want to do it. And it really is. It really can be that simple, and it's fun. And as we said, it is just a code. And one of the really nicest things I did before was actually sort of one step removed. We actually did a composition, but what we did is we created a clock face. And as you move around the clock, we just had different symbols for what it was going to be. So everybody had just sound effects to make this composition. So it was an autumn-related thing. So we had dried leaves that we collected. We had tin cans. We had carrier bags. We had some twigs, some stone. We had all manner of different things. And so because we had the clock face, we had an amount of time the composition was going to be lasting for. And we were also then able to use arrows to point to, at this point you're going to do this, but now we're going to add this particular sound effect as well. We had the thought of a journey of people walking sort of through the autumn and actually things that they might be able to do. And so it wasn't just a kind of, well, now I need to do a composition, how does that work? It was kind of, I've got a structure, I've got a code.
Absolutely.
And that's all music making is.
I'm just going to write that clock face down, if you don't mind.
Yes. and formal notation's the same. It's just a way that everyone can do it straight away. And so I think being creative with that is really great as well, because then it becomes cross-curricular. No, it became an art lesson because they wanted to, it was part of the performance. The teacher was there, or the children could even do it as well, pointing to where it was going round the clock, and you wanted to make it look fantastic because the parents were then going to be watching and the rest of the school were watching, and then you have to think about, well, how are we going to organise ourselves? So we're used to facing the front and doing our composition, but now we need to be facing the audience. So how are we going to be able to see, maybe we'll put it on a projector, maybe we'll do it, and the world becomes open, because you've just got a plan of what it is you're trying to do.
And what you thought in your head, well, you didn't, but you would have thought that's going to take 5 minutes. Actually took an hour, didn't it, Mark?
Yeah, it takes absolutely, and you can do it over an amount of time.
Absolutely.
So we're going out for the afternoon. We need to find some twigs and some leaves, and we need to ask you to raid your carrier bag cupboard and all of those things. And so all those sorts of things, we're going to have those suggestions as well for you, just to be able to sort of find some of these ideas and just give it a go, because then even just the things we've talked about already, that might be a year.
Yes.
in lots of ways.
Yes.
And so it really can be that simple.
Yes.
And we just want to support you that the fear comes from the unknown, and as soon as you have with all of your planning for all the subjects that people do, as long as you know exactly where you're going from, what you might not have is the experience, and hopefully we can bring the experience of things that we know that works. Yeah. And as soon as you're engaging with the children, they'll love it as well, and then it takes on a whole life of its own.
When I've been full time in a school, especially because then you obviously get a lot of relationships with other staff as well, I've had many staff have said to me, "Oh, it's quite a lot easier than I thought. You make that look so easy." Oh, it was quite easy, wasn't it? And that's a lot of where I'm coming from with this whole system as well. Listen, I've heard teachers say, "I can't do music. I'm terrified of music. We're so glad you come and do it for us." And then they gradually say, "But I could have done that." They join in. They start putting their own slant on it as well, and and they're retraining at the same time.
Absolutely, and whether we can support you, if you're part of the local cluster who are going to be involved in our actual cluster events, then we can come and show you some of these things. Yes. If it's something you want to do, if you actually want to be part of a session and we can show you how to do it, then that's absolutely fine. And as we said, we'll have the resource material online as well, so you'll be able to do either of those.
I do feel I'm a bit of a filter, because I can open up the book as a musician and I'll say, "Oh yeah, what am I going to get out of this then? Right, I've got that." You may open the book as a non-musician and it's just a whole load of dots and squiggles. So I'm sort of the filter that would then say, actually, do it like this. Yeah. You are using that resource, but this is how you should teach it.
And I think,
and believe me, it takes 2 minutes before you're teaching yourself.
Yeah, and it's just seeing that picture, and it's joining all those things up.
Yeah.
So all these things are fantastic, and you can do if you are in a position to then move things forward and you want to create maybe a ukulele or a recorder ensemble or something like that. You mentioned Sara Watts before. She's quite a good starting point, isn't she, and resources to be able to do those sorts of things.
Yes, Sara Watts. She's a wonderful music educator. She's got the Red Hot Song Library, which I use a lot of. And again, when I use commercial resources, I try to get them that anybody can use. Yeah. I don't try to get something unusual, because I'm aware that people want to take my work and do it into the schools. She also does an awful lot of recorder work, and woodwind and brass. She goes the whole caboodle, but she comes right back to basic songs. And then stretches all the way out. But yes, Sara Watts is a good one.
She's a good one. And then if you find yourself that you've been doing this, or you've got different instruments going on, and you want to create an ensemble, even if it's just a one-off to begin with, just to get everyone playing together. I guess we should say before that actually that the whole idea of having a music assembly in terms of people playing on their own is quite a good thing, because even if you only have a couple of people in the school playing an instrument, just getting them to perform and other people seeing it is a really important, really key thing, isn't it? But if you get to that ensemble stage, is it a question of having to write your own music and work the groups out, which I think would just frighten everybody?
Absolutely.
How do you go about that? How do you incorporate what
again,
you have?
You find Sara Watts with her band in a book, and she basically gives you the kids 2 notes to play. Right. Put the CD on in the background, and it'll carry the tune, and the children will play. If you were conducting them, you stick to your music elements. Are we being loud? Are we being quiet? you kind of make that bit up. Should it sound loud? Should it sound quiet? Sara Watts will tell you, but you can make it up yourself quite easily. Should we play smooth? Should we be playing detached? How should we be doing this? But Sara Watts will literally give the children 2 notes to play in a piece of music, and they're all playing the same too, and it works just wonderfully.
Fantastic.
Throughout.
And we'll have all these resources on the website. You can go and we'll have links on the show notes page, which will be at educationonfire.com. So you can just click through all those things, and we'll just show you exactly the sort of book that Carol's talking about and how that can work. And so beyond that, you talked about Out of the Arc and those sorts of things. Are those things you do for ensembles, or is that more choir, or how do you use
Out of the Arc, I use any show that we're going to do. Out of the Arc is my absolute starting point for that, and I very rarely go elsewhere for anything. They have a wonderful assembly series, very reasonable cost as well. And I'm doing 2 of those actually next week. I'm doing Ancient Egyptians, and what's the other one I'm doing? Great Fire of London. But actually, the Great Fire of London one I'm doing with Year 2. It's a little bit over the top, so I'm dumping one of the songs, and I'm just going to stick London's Burning in because it kind of gets the job done. I'll also adapt it that the Year 2 won't be able to follow the script. My Year 3 will with the Egyptians one, but the Year 2 won't. So the children will write their script then. So I've got London's Burning, a song about the Great Fire of London, which is quite a simple one, and the children's script, and there's an assembly right there. We'll put some instruments for London's Burning. We'll do it with as a round. We'll do some crackly sounds. We'll get a whole thing going there.
And I think it's at that moment you suddenly realise that you don't need to do music in school. You're already doing learning in school. Yes. Exactly. So all the things that you're going to be doing, whatever your topic happens to be, you can incorporate.
Out of the Arc will
music.
have something for it. Their assembly series, I use those with their words on screen. Again, the children love the words on the screen. You're not copying out by doing anything. Use the resources that are there. The children are also really, really good at operating the computer. Yep. So you don't need to do that. You just give that to some Year 6 who's going to work their way through your playlist. There's your assembly right there. Yeah. They enjoy watching Out of the Arc assembly. They do sing in parts. They do sing with harmonies. So they're doing it for you right there. They also do their Key Stage 1 resources I use a lot. Their topic resources as well, like songs about water, songs about mini beasts, songs about the sun, songs about autumn, and you get yourself a couple of those and you're good to go. And one of the things I'd like to cover beyond, we talked about getting things going and how it can flourish and all that, but where does quality fit into the sort of thing that you where you come from? Because we all want to sing, we all want to have a choir and an ensemble, and we want it to be fun, but there's also that element of actually we want it to be good actually as well.
Exactly. And so that actual sort of teaching music with that professional knowledge that you have, how do you, obviously you can fit it in with what you do, but how would you suggest that teachers can do that as well?
Again, it comes down to music being really, really basic, and it just has a couple of elements in it. Even when you go along to listen to a professional orchestra, they're all playing fast and slow, loud and quiet, high and low, whether they're playing detached, whether they're playing smoothly. They're all doing this. Are they changing through it? Are they getting louder? Are they getting quieter? Are they speeding up? Are they slowing down? And if you have just a little list of words next to you, you incorporate those, it tightens everything up. And you're not just singing a song because you're thinking about it. You're thinking about the words that you're singing. You're thinking about where you're going to place them, where you're going to breathe, where you're going to focus. Once again, though, you're probably doing it already. Many years ago, a music coordinator in a school, she was desperately trying to tick some boxes and say, have we followed pulse? Have we done rhythm? Have we done this? And I said, well, unless you're just singing one note, and you never change that note, you did the lot. But by definition, you have to cover all of those bases.
Exactly. And a lot of those tick box things are often, if you just do great stuff, you've more than ever covered whatever that baseline is. And you won't even, you've done it, but you don't even have to try.
No, it just happens.
It just is. Yeah. And one of the things I'm also quite keen on is, especially when people start to learn things, it's those good habits that really have bigger results later on. We're going to sit, but we're going to be sit in a good posture. We're going to stand in a good posture. Where are we going to put our arms? How are we going to breathe? Where are we breathing from? And you can talk about diaphragm and that sort of thing. And do you start those sorts of things really early on and allow that to progress? Or
in my schools, generally, because they're learning them from little anyway, And, I'll sing the same song with a year 2 class that we sang in year 1, but we're up leveling it now. So my school's very much, we're doing those. But the first week that we're doing a song, no. The first week we have a listen, we have a go, and then we might move on to something else. We won't come back to it until the next week, unless it was hugely popular and everybody wants to sing it 6 times. So I gradually work that over the period of a term. And every week during class we'll say, how are we improving it this week? What is different to last week? And the last week of term, I always like to just do everything we've done, and it's a performance, even if we don't have an audience, which just showing, remember how this was in week 1? Well, look how wonderful it is now. And it might be that somebody actually now knows the words.
Yes. Yeah. And it is that gradual progression, isn't it?
Which is what music is. When you come to me for a piano lesson, I don't expect you to be able to play it perfectly the first week. It's going to take the term. And those are great skills that music really has a benefit for, isn't it? Across the board.
You can't just do it. I mean, even if you're exceptionally talented, there comes a point where actually I need to put the hours in, and in school that's the same. Having those regular singing lessons, or having those regular instrumental lessons, or having your regular time in your class, and that might just be registration, know. But without doing anything more than just that, each week it gets better. And like you say, when you look back over a term or over a year, you just have that embedded. And I've certainly found that with my samba sessions when I've been into schools. Immediately from the moment they start doing a rhythm, they're used to doing a rhythm because they have a sense of pulse, because it's something they've done week in, week out. And the ones that don't, really tell that as well.
Right, and it gives the children confidence to do the same thing again the next week. That was another thing that I've been told again in schools. People who have thought that you had to have a completely different music lesson the next week.
Yeah.
Well, that was a really good song we did last week. Let's do that again. And yes, some things you'll do and you'll think, we're never doing that again, But, generally the children like it when they know that one song is coming on, or they're requesting a song. If they've done it before, they enjoy it. So we don't really have very many behaviour issues or anything in the room. If the children are confident, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And after you've introduced the song or the piece of music for that first week, after that you start to sit back a little bit.
Yeah. And I think because, there's a lot of talk these days about mindfulness and all that sort of thing, but music has to be that because they're engaged. And it's engagement. That's what it is. They're fully involved. Everyone's taking part. There's no waiting around for things to happen. Everyone's doing it all the time. And that's really, really
important. It doesn't
important.
matter who you are, where you are in your class.
No.
Everybody can do music.
Yeah, and you're supported from all the way through because you're in a group. And also, like you said, that confidence to be able to say something on your own. It's only just for a second, and kids really like that. And then it opens up that whole conversation. Oh, I felt a little bit funny because I was a little bit nervous. Yeah, absolutely. But that's part of the thing as well, and I think all of those extra things that music specifically can bring and support children with in terms of confidence and self-esteem and just that general support network. Speech, absolutely.
It's a huge one.
Absolutely. I do remember going into a school and one of the rhythm games I did, I'd often introduce it with people saying their name in the gap and that sort of thing. But then in the gap we did times table and then we did the alphabet, and they were like, it's like an English lesson or a maths lesson. Well, you can put in whatever you like. What's your topic? And that's probably quite a good place to round things off as well, is the fact that you have a whole academic year this year, and actually you don't have to plan the whole thing completely from a blank piece of paper because you've got harvest coming up in the autumn.
Absolutely.
And then you've got Christmas and then you've got Easter, and it doesn't matter how your school is in terms of whether it's got a religious attachment or whether it's completely secular or whatever your setup is. There are things within the school year that you will be looking forward to or celebrating or acknowledging in some way or another. And with that, there'll be a song, there'll be something you can do, there'll be a piece of work that you can put together with that. And so when you're starting at the beginning of the year, if indeed that's what you want to do to plan your year, actually you've got not that much to fill in.
Right, absolutely. And that's what I was doing in one of my schools. They actually apologised to me in the summer when they said, we've redone our creative curriculum, Carol, and we're really sorry, but we've got some different topics, and would you be able to put music around these topics? And they were wondering why I was having hysterical giggling. Yay, I don't have to go through my 3,000 songs. Yay, I've got a dozen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually made my summer a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. My daughter's got World War II topic at the moment.
Oh, I've got a book on that right there.
Exactly. and you'll remember from when Callum was in school, we actually did a production of World War II songs, and I had a professional band come in and all of that, and it's just that's a particularly great topic because there's so many great songs and they're fun and easy to do. So well, thanks so much for chatting. I mean, it's been really interesting, and I hope you can actually sort of picture how all these things can come together, and actually you can start putting music in your school. And if you've got great music going on already, where you can actually extend it and where you can develop these things. Go to the website educationonfire.com and see all the resources that there. We're going to have some free downloadable stuff that you can do. Just sign up and you can download it. Use the ladder. Use the crit sheet of where you're actually going to start, and we'll have a list of all the resources we talked about and Out of the Ark and Sara Watts and all these things with some links to books that are used a lot that can just give you that initial resource, and then we'll try and support you with how you can do it. And please get in touch. Let us know what you think, and if you need any help and support, then just drop us a line. You can do it through the contact page on the website, or just write to mark@educationonfire.com, and we'll try and give you as much support as we possibly can. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.